Welcome to the Real Chili Podcast.
And the Golden Eagles of Marquette University in Milwaukee are bound for the Final Four for only the third time ever.
5 seconds left. Marquette down by one, trying to avoid the upset. Blue the drive, the left hand. It's good. 1 second to play. Vander Blue has put Marquette in front by one.
And I want to win every day as basketball players, as students, and I want to win every day, most importantly, as people.
Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to the Real Chili Podcast. I'm your host, Mike Lavender. I'm joined by my buddy Pete Worth. And Pete, we talked a lot about expectations for this basketball team heading into this season. We talked about expectations on the offensive side. We talked about expectations on the defensive side. And if there was a game, an opening game against a mid-major that could deliver on those expectations, this game did it. Marquette came away with a win over UMBC, 67-42. I was impressed, Pete. What did you think?
Well, first, Mike, I would just like to say that my lazy ass, as you
You're listening.
supposedly aptly called me last week, is up here 10:30 in the evening after this big Marquette win recording, missing the Duke-Kentucky game, mind you. So I would like to say that, first of all. Second of all, there's that patented Marquette defense, swarming to the ball, length everywhere, hands in passing lanes, closing out on shooters. No, but seriously, an awesome defensive performance by Marquette, I thought.
Yeah, I think if you didn't get a chance to see the game, if you watched any Marquette games last year, you would not have recognized this as almost the same sport or almost the same team. There were sequences early in the game involving new faces like Ed Morrow, Brendan Bailey, Theo John had a monster game. This was a game where throughout, Marquette had a defensive identity. They were tough. They were blocking shots. They were grabbing rebounds in a way, frankly, Pete, that I haven't seen happen in a number of years. And that defensive mentality, that toughness that we got so used to under Buzz, seemed like it was starting to creep back in with some of the play that we saw. And people knew their assignments in a way that just didn't exist last year.
It was right from the beginning of the game, and it was consistently there throughout the game. We won this game because of our defense, like without a doubt.
Without a doubt, yeah.
Without a doubt. I mean, our shooting was very poor for Marquette standards. But I think back to that Ben Steele article that came out before, I think it was before the Carroll exhibition. It was like, Marquette's really taken pride in their defense. We're having fun playing defense this year. And I think most of us, when we read that, we're like, okay, yeah, that's
yeah,
bullshit.
Nice fluff piece,
Yeah, exactly. But, I mean, they look like they made that article true.
Yes.
And the catalyst, I thought, was Marcus. Right from the beginning of the game, I thought the energy was huge in that first 5 minutes of the game. We went out to that nice big run and we were playing really smooth basketball. And I thought Marcus, his pressure on the ball, kind of set the tone for the rest of the defense.
Yeah, I think the defensive sequence that I first noticed was really watching Ed Morrow kind of run the baseline on the defensive side, rotating in and out. You saw Brendan Bailey, who, again, he's a freshman, but he's 21 years old. He got a block about the 17-minute mark in the first half. And it was just this moment where it was 15 seconds and grabbing a rebound and blocking a shot and boxing out that I don't remember seeing it all last year.
Yeah.
I think, Pete, we were talking about this before we jumped on. Marquette held UMBC to 22.6% shooting from the floor. And I believe, as they noted on the TV broadcast, that's the lowest total Marquette has held an opponent to since 2004. Now, we'll see if it can carry over. UMBC is not your typical mid-major, but certainly a good starting point. We do need to get to talking about some of the new faces. There were a lot of new faces who got a lot of minutes in this game. Brendan Bailey, Joey Hauser, Ed Morrow, Chartouni. Pete, I'm interested who stood out to you, because I tell you what, I saw a lot of good things from every single one of those guys to the extent where Wojo's got a problem. Wojo has got a great problem to have if you're a coach.
Yeah, he absolutely does. And the guy that stood out to me out of those newcomers tonight was Brendan Bailey for sure. Even all the way to the very last possession when he blocked that layup after a fast break turnover for UMBC. He got back into position and stuffed that dude, whoever he was, to close out the game and ended on a pretty awesome note. But like you mentioned right before we started talking about the newcomers, Mike, like the first couple possessions that you were talking about of the game, like Brendan Bailey was there in position on defensive rotations to block off driving lanes, especially on the baseline. Him and Morrow, I thought, were great at that tonight. And Bailey hitting the first shot of Fiserv for him right off the bat. That was cool to see. That was his only bucket of the game, actually. But he affected the game in a lot of different ways, I thought. Ed Morrow, Chartouni, not so great performances. Ed Morrow, especially for starting the game, he was kind of overshadowed by Theo, which we'll talk about him in a second.
Yeah.
But Chartouni, I thought, Chartouni handled the ball well. He was 0 for 3. He had that nasty brick, but made a couple nice passes, and that's going to be his MO, and that's what we want him to do. And I'm sure both of those guys will improve significantly as the season progresses. But what'd you think of Joey's game?
You know, I like Joey's game. That's the first time I had watched extended minutes of him. I was impressed by the quality of the handle that he has. I didn't expect a guy, it's better than Sam's. I think that's easy to say. He's not a better player than Sam, but I think Joey has a better ball handling ability than Sam does. And Joey demonstrated a couple times, dribbling on the baseline through defenders, cutting down the lane. But I was impressed by that. I think Joey knocked down the 1 3-pointer that he took. And so I was impressed by him. I thought Chartouni did some good things. One of the things that I was really looking for, was how is this Marcus Howard and Chartouni thing going to work out? And I think you saw Wojo experimenting a little bit where sometimes they were on the court together. Sometimes I think was this right? Later in the game, it kind of became, Marcus is on the court for a little bit, then throw Chartouni in and give Marcus a blow. And I thought that worked well.
I think it did too. The thing about tonight with Marcus struggling with his outside shot, I thought having them both on the court at the same time might free Marcus up a little bit so that he doesn't have to rely on his kind of basically creating his own shot.
Yeah.
Which he tried to do a little too much tonight, I thought. When he was penetrating, he was doing a great job, especially finishing at the rim a couple times. I thought he had some really great finishes at the rim.
You mentioned Ed Morrow, and I do want to cover this just a little bit more. So Ed Morrow started the game, only ended up with 7 minutes. I don't remember exactly kind of when I don't think he played at all in the second half. But he started the game, and he played well. There wasn't a significant lapse in something that Ed Morrow was doing where I said, oh, Jesus, get him off the court.
Right.
It was really, I think it was near the 16-minute, the first TV timeout, that Theo John came in to give Ed Morrow a blow, and Theo John just grabbed that position, and Theo John played like a beast. So, but you just mentioned Ed Morrow didn't look too good.
Yeah, I mean, I don't want to say that it was a poor or terrible performance or anything. I just think maybe in the first game for his new team, he might have had some nerves out there. He still played pretty good defense, as we've already discussed. He just looked maybe a little lost on the offensive end. He was a little maybe overly aggressive, I thought, at times, trying to set screens but the thing was, I mean, Theo John outplayed him, and Wojo kept with him because Theo, the most important thing, Pete Mohan mentioned it on our pod that just came out a couple days ago right before this game, was that he needed to learn how to defend the rim without fouling, and he did a great job of that tonight and added a few gimme dats in midair where he saw the block coming like 5 seconds away and could just yell, gimme dat, and swatted it out of bounds at least a couple times.
So Theo John finished with 24 minutes. He grabbed 10 rebounds, 5 offensive, 5 defensive. He had 3 blocks. He did have 4 fouls. He went 4 of 5 from the field. Watching him throughout the second half, he was mentally engaged in the game. He was physically active in the game. It's definitely one of the best games I've seen him play. I think they mentioned on the broadcast that 10 rebounds is a career high for him. So that's an interesting thing to watch. I know we mentioned this. Pete did. I did as well. That 3, 4, 5 spot, who's going to define themselves. I think we specifically said, is someone going to step up and demand Wojo give them minutes, or is it going to be situational plug and play? And I think tonight the one person who stepped up and demanded minutes was Theo John. And
absolutely.
There were other good spots, but Theo John really stood out.
I mentioned Brandon Bailey before. I thought Sam played a great game. Sam looked especially fluid, I thought, in the beginning, especially in the beginning of the game.
Healthy.
Exactly. There was one drive to the hoop right at the beginning. I'm not sure if it was an and one. I think it might have been. But it was a sort of agility that I don't think we've really seen in him before. And that might just be because he's 100% healthy and he's added a little strength in the offseason in his 2 years here. But I thought he looked nice. And it was terribly frightening when he went down with that.
Oh, I missed that. What happened?
Yeah, I think he just came down on somebody's foot when he went down for a rebound. I don't know. He was back in there within like 5 minutes, I think, and hit his first three from the corner right when he came back in. So crisis averted there.
Good work.
It was typical Sam Hauser basketball, taking the right shots when they were there and driving when the opportunities presented themselves. 8 rebounds. Marquette out-rebounded UMBC 47-30, which speaks about your kind of our wing switchables. Mm-hmm. Heck, it looks like Marcus Howard even had 8 rebounds. Sam Hauser had 8. Chartouni had 5. Joey had 7. Jamal Cain, who I thought played a really nice second half.
He did, yeah.
He looked his confidence looked a little shook there in the first half, just maybe because he wasn't getting that many minutes. But after he kind of had a nice putback there in the second half, and then hit a 3 in the possession right after that, he seemed to really pick it up a bit. So having this multitude of 6'6", 6'8" guys, including Sakar, who played his typical steady game, didn't stand out a ton in the box score. But I mean, these are all the weapons that Wojo has at his disposal.
And Sakar, just to mention that, got the most minutes of anyone. He played 33 minutes of anyone on the team, and so building off that point, kind of taking a step back from looking at individual players, but building off your point, no one's perfect. I mean, we know what Howard and we know what Hauser are, but to my mind, all of the guys on the court demonstrated a unique skill or a niche that if they grow into it, they could fill and they could play at a high level. They could play in a starting lineup. And so I was trying to kind of, as I was watching, I was saying, who's not showing me anything? Who can we live without? Yeah. Who's not going to get minutes? And I kept saying, everybody was showing me something.
Right.
That was the most surprising thing to me, and I think that's kind of reflected in the box score, where there's Bailey got 5 points, Sakar got 6, Joey Hauser got 6, Jamal got 7. Anyway, did that jump out to you as well, the diversity and kind of the equity on the team?
Yeah, exactly. And not only did everybody show a little different something, it's a diversity of skill sets that I think will mesh well together and end up being a very solid basketball team. Because you need all of those different facets to be an upper echelon team in the NCAA. And the most important thing is the athleticism and the basketball IQ. The shooting will come. We all know that.
Yeah, we're not worried about that.
We all know it's an off night from the 3-point land. But yeah, I think your point is extremely valid, that we have a lot of different guys that can do a lot of different things, and whether we can piece them together or not for a full season, not really sure, but it's going to be super fun to watch.
And some of those things that you mentioned about nerves, even for a returning guy like Jamal or for Ed Morrow, who's more of a vet, they are meshing. They don't know what their roles on this team are, and so that is going to take a little bit of time. But watching this game, this is a tournament team. This is without doubt a tournament team, and this is a team that has talent. That is my version of an overreaction.
Yeah.
But watching this game has me incredibly excited to see where this team goes this year. I think we could legitimately go into Bloomington and get a win. I think we might be able to hang with Kansas. I don't think we could beat Kansas. But anyway, my expectations, which were already high heading into this game, have only gone up after watching this game, and I'm not ashamed to admit it.
Yeah, and I don't think it's the that egregious of an overreaction because UMBC, obviously we know what they did last year. Now their starting backcourt is gone.
Right.
One of those, their point guard was the defensive player of the year in the conference. Their shooting guard was probably the best player in the conference in the America East last year, Lyles, who dominated Virginia in that game and was a really, really solid player. But the rest of the squad, they brought back, 3 or 4 of those guys contributed heavy minutes to that team last year. And so, it's no slouch. Yep. And we made them look pretty dreadful. It's no cupcake for the first game of the season, and that was intentional by the scheduling,
right?
Especially for opening up the Fiserv. But it was an impressive performance against not the best team, but not the worst team either.
We could have done worse. So, no offense to Bethune-Cookman, but we will do worse.
Oh, let's offend Bethune-Cookman. Let's offend them, please.
Well, Ken Palm already did.
Okay.
On Saturday, November 10th, Marquette will face off against Bethune-Cookman in Milwaukee. But, Pete, all in all, the Fiserv Forum looked beautiful. Beautiful new arena. The crowd didn't seem too hype. I guess you can't blame them for the UMBC thing.
Yeah. Hard to say.
But beautiful new arena. It seems like we've got a good team. We've got a good thing going. Excited to see how this continues to grow. I think there's a lot of promise. And, as we talked about in the pod the other day, we're going to know what this team is. This isn't a non-conference schedule where, there's going to be question marks. This team is going to be tested before we get to the Big East. We're going to know what we have by the time we enter conference. And I think we're going to be happy with it.
I couldn't agree more. The one thing I'd like to add was just R.I.P. Matt Helter Skelter. Helter Skelter, I think, is no more.
He got in at 1 minute.
But that's the thing is like Matt Helt, yeah, he's a good mid-major Division I starter. If we want to go to the heights that we want to go for Marquette basketball, Matt Helt's not going to be our starting center. I'm sorry.
No. Nope.
So
yeah, it breaks our heart. It really does.
But
that's the way it goes.
But the thing about him is if Morrow or Bailey or one of our front court pieces does get injured, we know we can throw him in there. So there is that.
Yeah. So there is that. All right, folks. That is the quick and dirty recap of Marquette's 67-42 victory over the University of Maryland, Baltimore County Retrievers. Next up, Bethune-Cookman on Saturday, November 10th. Pete, it's good to talk to you again. It's been a while.
It has been a while, Mike. Thank you. And I'd like to just say one more thing to our friend Brian Henry. The dogs were not barking tonight.
They were not. All right, folks. For everyone here at the Real Chili Podcast, I'm Mike Lavender. We will talk to you next time.